It's a Windows 10 thing. It was taken away in Windows 11. It should be coming back soon. And if there's anyone there who would like to say anything, you can just feel free to chime in and post a question here. I'll be checking in from time to time. And now a word about schedule. When not to use schedule. Let's be honest, schedule is not a one-size-fits-all scheduling library. This library is designed to be a simple solution for simple scheduling problems. You should probably look somewhere else if you need job persistence, remembering schedule between restarts, exact timing, which means like sub-second precision execution, concurrent execution, which is like multiple threads or similar techniques, and localization with like, time zones and knowledge of holidays. So that's where that Huey thing comes into play. We're actually going to be moving off of schedule soon, but not before we switch schedule over to use a decorator style to schedule the jobs. So as you saw in my example over here, we're doing normal scheduling, where each schedule event is just a line in the script. It doesn't have to be that way. You can, instead of using a line in a script, you can use a line decorating. See, this is a decorator. It's a line decorating the function. And in order to make it shorter language, so it's not schedule.repeat, schedule.every, to avoid repeating the word schedule, the example shows how to import just the parts of the schedule module you need. So it's from schedule, import every, repeat, and run pending. And so your way of addressing it becomes more direct. It's instead of schedule.run pending, it's just run pending. All right, so we've already done that. Is there any more of exposition I need to do? I told you. Yeah, that's what we're trying to accomplish. We're switching to decorators. And yeah. Now I show you this other one. I turn off simple modes to get our tabs back. I go over to the version that uses decorators. And instead of these two lines here, right? So it's imports, definition, 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 schedule, events, busy loop. All right. Here, I don't have it separated into text boxes because that would interfere with the mental model here, because the schedule events are tied to each function. So it's imports, function, 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 but two of the functions actually have the schedule times tied onto them, attached to them with that ampersand. And maybe I'll explain decorators in some video in the future, but basically it's nested functions. It's functions within functions, so that they can pass their arguments to each other and do things along the way in a very Unix-like way. It's a lot like data piping. It's, no surprise it's used in technologies that are also named pipelining, data pipelines. Decorators are perfectly set up for that. But it means everything you decorate needs to be a function, because decorators work on functions. And that's a problem in one of my situations, which I solved, and solved in another video. But without further ado, this should have the same exact effect as this. It should have that same footprint there, the same output. So first I'm going to restart kernel and clear all output, because there was a little spoiler at the bottom there because there was already some output showing. So of course it's going to work. I did this ahead of time to make sure it was going to work. So there's our first pulse, our second pulse, and then our scheduled one. See that? Or run once. And then it'll continue on, and it's going to run exactly like this one over here. So we've achieved decorator scheduling in Python under Jupyter. Now the question always arises, how do you get that into 24/7, behavior? And I guess I'll show you that. We do escape and then 0 to interrupt the kernel. And interrupting the kernel is just stopping it in the background Python server that's actually there from running. You're restarting the Python kernel. And that's a great way to stop these things so you don't get stuck in busy loops. It's not that busy because of the sleep one, but still, you don't need it running when you do other things. And so what's our other thing? Our other thing is going over here now and going into our Linux container. So first we go into our Linux host, our main WSL Linux, Windows Subsystem for Linux version that we've installed from Windows, and that's this. I could do lsb_release all, show you a little about that environment. It's Ubuntu 18.04. For unfortunate reasons, I would like to explain that more, why I'm not on 20.04, but take my word for it. To use this container system, 18.04 is the place to be if you're using the Windows subsystem for Linux. Because, I'll tell you, when you sudo lxd init, which is what you do after you sudo apt install lxd, right? So on 18.04, you sudo apt install lxd, and after it's installed, you can sudo lxd init. And the consequent wizard that comes up, if you follow the path I'm advocating, you can just enter through all the defaults of sudo lxd init, and it'll work. You'll have a working LXD container host under Windows Subsystem for Linux. All right, so that's my environment right now. And so I can do lxc, which is the command to control LXD, ironically enough. I can list, no, it's not even hyphen list, it's like this, and then it's hyphen fast in order to fit it on my screen without a wrap. Otherwise, it's too wide for my big old fonts. And you can see that I'm actually running one of my containers called Munchkin, which is the one where I've been doing this service work. And what is this service work? Well, I've been emailing me a zip file of cats in order to prove to myself I can do it as a Linux service. So we're going to log into that by going lxc execute, because we're executing command on Munchkin. See, we're executing a command on Munchkin. What is that command? Well, you put 2 minus signs and a space to divide things up. The command is switch user. That uses the parameter login, and that is specifying the user Ubuntu. All right, magic spells are cast, and our cursor changes to Ubuntu at Munchkin. All right. Now we can check whether our scheduler service is running by typing systemctl status scheduler. It's disabled. Okay, it knows it's there, but it's disabled. This is the way I left it intentionally, or it would be emailing me cats. I didn't even just stop it, I disabled it, so it's not accidentally started again. So this service is defined by a file that resides here, and I can sudo vim that, and there's the file. I could actually make changes to it here if I wished to, and I do not think I wish to, because I think I'm going to be keeping the file name scheduler. Right? That's basically the perfect name for what this does. I used to name it Pulse, but it's now more appropriately named Scheduler, because only one of the things it does is the pulse heartbeat. So let me see if there's people with me on the live cast. Yeah, there's a few people, and you can feel free to chime in. I'll be looking here and answering your questions. So I am going to make a copy of scheduler, leave the old one in place as a backup, and then change this scheduler over to use the new decorator system that we're doing. So this is the file that this scheduler.service file is pointing at. Together, this scheduler.service and that scheduler.py constitute the full scheduler. So now I can vim, I don't need to sudo it because in the location that's at, I own that file. And you'll recognize here the pre-decorated version of scheduling. It's about as big as I can get and have it all on screen at once. So it's a little bit, I know that's small, but this is, these are the schedule events right here. And I have a few extra things in here to allow me to run external files as a function, right? So I define a function called sendMail, but what sendMail really does with those 4 lines there is it runs an external program called sendcats.py, right? So all we're going to do is we're essentially going to get rid of these 3 commands, and we're going to put decorators above here. And I'm going to keep this old file around for posterity. So I'm going to quit out, and I'm going to cd to that location, cd from home. It's always GitHub. In this case, it's scheduler. And I am going to ls that directory. You'll see that's the file I was looking at in Vim before. And now I'm going to cp scheduler to scheduler backup.py. So I have 2 files. They're copies of each other now, scheduler.backup and just plain old scheduler. So I can do that Vim command again that I just had going and edit this scheduler without any fear of losing my old work. Now, that's really old school because we're not using Git in this folder yet. Soon we'll use Git in this folder and we will turn it into a repository, so I don't need to do nonsense like making copies of files. But I'm doing it for example purposes. I might like to pull this one up fast and say, hey, look, we switched from this style scheduling to decorator style scheduling without having to fuss around with the Git interface. Okay, so anyway, previously we were just importing schedule. Now in this new way of doing it, we're importing these tiny little bits of schedule. And I'll just put that down here. Again, the pepators are going to hate my style of waterfall imports, but such is life. And so that's going to break this because there's references to schedule here, and that doesn't work. So that is the function called hello every 10 seconds, right? So that is this hello function. So that's going to be insert mode at, and it's going to be the same syntax we were using over here. Repeat every, we'll put in 10 seconds, right? That's exactly the one we want. Repeat every 10 seconds. And that means we can get rid of this one here. The next one is pulse, repeat every 5 seconds. And then that takes care of this. And then every 1 minute is that last one. So we will just take this and we'll put that there. delete that last entry here. Now this printing should probably go up here. And we review from top down. Oh, schedule dot. So I want to make sure I get rid of any references to schedule, except on the import, right? The import's the only, and file name references. File name reference, file name reference, file name reference. Those are all fine. And repeat in every we used. Run pending, I used, and cancel job. So I don't want to do that email thing to myself over and over. One attached email of cats is probably enough. So that's send mail, and I'll use this command that I put at the bottom of run once to cancel the job. So send mail will run once and cancel the job. And now instead of repeat every 1 minute, that's sort of a kind of older school way to go. But this would be a good test of what I have. I guess we want to test these things one at a time before I bring over the technology in order to have it run 11 seconds from now. And regardless of a duty cycle recurrence, it just runs once every 11 seconds from now, and that requires this function over there. Oh, what the heck? Let's do that. Why do it in 2 tests? Just go for it. So I'll define that up here before the use of the other function. So it's seconds from now. And that means for this email, instead of doing this repeat every 1 minute like I was going to, I will just lift up that code I was using here, which should work exactly as is. And that's 11 seconds from the time the script starts. And that seems like a really good test, because there will be 2 heartbeats, and then the second after the second heartbeat, the email will be run. And so I guess I ought to set up receiving the email, which is going to be another tab here. Oh, it's not easy for me to bring up that email without revealing my main Gmail. I always have to bring that up first. So as long as we don't get an error on the email send, we know it's going to have worked. And I'll bring up another terminal and connect into Munchkin so I can leave that file loaded. And same deal, LXC exec Munchkin switch user login Ubuntu. So I'm in it again over here, and I can check if the service has a screen by going screen ls, no sockets found. I should be able to activate this service. See, I updated the .py file, but I did not need to update this service file. So because it's only the py file that needed updating, I should be able to get this running by just sudo on Ubuntu, Systemctl, because whenever you're doing things with systemd, you're using Systemctl to control it. Enable scheduler. Okay, it's enabled the scheduler, and almost the same command, sudo systemctl start scheduler. Now we look for our screens. No screen found. That's not good. That means there's a problem. We'll take a look at what the problem is. We are going to stop the scheduler, because in whatever kind of busy loop it's stuck in trying to start, we don't really need in our lives. We look over here, and we look back here. And now we understand that in order to test it, we can give the exact path to Python, the exact long path. It's a pain, but it goes home, Ubuntu, the virtual env directory of pi 3.0 to the bin, to the Python 3, and then to the home, Ubuntu, GitHub, scheduler, schedule.py. I got something wrong. I should have used command line completion. What didn't it like? Oh yeah, pi 310, not 3.0. Okay, and then I got something wrong in, scheduler, not schedule. All right, date is not defined. I just need to do one more import. That's why I kept this loaded here. From datetime, import datetime, comma, date. And now that I remember, it's also relative time, or time delta. Oh, the pulse service has started. I can Control-C out because I know it's going to work. And now I can do the Systemctl command to start it. Sudo Systemctl. Start scheduler. It doesn't complain. We check our screens. There's our scheduler screen. We connect into it. Reattach. And there's our service running. It had 2 pulses. It sent the email. And now it's going back to the 2 pulses and the hello worlds. And it's not going to send the email again. There you have it. That achieves the goal of this video, by the way. Control-A-D to detach. And I'll check if anyone's chatting at me. That stuff is accomplished. The rest is gravy. Hey there, X Prime. You wanted to reset your laptop, but it won't let you do it. Can I help you? To reset your laptop? I don't know. This is yeah, there's a way to restart, to get back to factory default. I forget exactly what it is, but just Google it up and look for factory default. I take it you're on Windows. Okay, Ellie Schwank. No relevant questions. Just wanted to thank me for giving the world what it needs. Even if the analytics look bad, you're here and you're learning a lot and you deeply appreciate the mentors. Yeah, you're welcome. That's, exactly what I'm trying to accomplish here. The 5 concurrent users, this is one of my all-time highs, I'll tell you. This is great. So go ahead and ask me questions. I am going to, do some preparatory work to simply change the import. See, the thing I've been doing for my day job, right, is a little bit of using my discretionary time in order to do my work for my day job. The big trick I needed for my day job is this one here. This is staged now for Huey, because even though I'm using a lightweight scheduler, I have now functionatized external program calls under Python using a decorator system to define scheduling. Well, guess what, folks? pypi.org Huey. You write tasks. You decorate those tasks with a scheduling definition. There's retries every whatever, and here is a periodic scheduling event. The language is going to change a little bit. The, nomenclature used here, but it's all going to be Python decorator syntax. So you see, I really just did so many of the things I needed for my day job, including creating a directory, filling the directory with things, zipping that directory, emailing the zipped directory, cleaning up and making sure that directory is empty on the next run. And boy, this covers so many things, and I'm going to have to think through the next step. Hey, Joseph joined in. Hello, great to hear from you. Joseph Melnick asks, are you leaving this Python code available somewhere? Sure, Joseph, you follow along while I finish my daily blog post here. And for Joseph, here's the two key files. Here's the two files. We don't need extra words that pull this off on a Linux system. First is put under /etc/systemd/system/scheduler.service. Pop over to our Linux container, quit out of that one. We'll need that code in a moment, but that's not the one I was talking about. So now I can vim /etc/systemd/system/scheduler. Sometimes very close to the end, I use command line completion just to assure myself I've typed everything correctly so far. And these are not big files. I'll just shrink the font down so I don't have to deal with that line wrap on the copy. And I believe I'm even leaving out one of these areas, right? These are areas. There's a service area, an install area. I think there's a third area that was on my original code example that I missed on the copy paste, and it worked without it, so I just went with it. But I'll probably check my other code. And since these are one single file in my journal, all I really have to do is search on service. Oh yeah, and that was it. See, unit description. These two things here should probably also be in those files. So maybe I'll correct that right now. I did not sudo vim it, so I can't do that. Quit with an exclamation point so that it ignores my changes. Whoops. Sudo vim. All right. So I'll probably have to do a restart. A reloading of the daemons to make that change take effect, but it doesn't affect its behavior at all. I'll put that in the code sample I'm about to push out to my blog as well. That goes at the top of this file. All right, and so then the other file is the one referred to by this. You can see where it goes. But its code now is this. I save it, and I do my release system. Now I'll give you a before and after real quick here. Use Python decorators for Linux server scheduling. It even has the icon for this in here, but it does not have the code at the bottom yet, so we need to give it a moment now. I must have pushed this out just knowing I was going to be doing this So the before doesn't have the code at the bottom, and you can go ahead and you like the syntax. Thank you. Are you leaving? Yeah. So I'm not sure what syntax you mean. Oh, yeah, I guess you're talking about the decorator for achieving scheduling. Yeah, using decorators to achieve scheduling is a really nice trick. And I did that before switching over to Huey. It's because Huey uses decorators to achieve the data pipelining instructions, which look very similar to scheduling instructions done with decorators. So I probably won't do it in this video, but this is the perfect video staging the step, the next step where I replace this, importing of schedule, which was pip install schedule, with importing of Huey, which was pip install Huey, and then just updating these two lines, and these will be running under Huey. I guess I should have said update these two lines over here, because this is, this is the one which is the actual service. Let's do one more refresh here. There it is. You want the code that runs this? Joseph, here's the code that runs this. This is all under Systemctl on Linux. So you go to a standard, Linux system that has Systemctl. You drop this file in this location, and you will need admin privileges. You'll have to sudo vim that, or however you do your text editing. And then this one just goes where that's referring to, which you'll have to recognize here. If you're doing this sort of work, you'll have to be able to recognize this sort of thing, but that is this file here. Home Ubuntu GitHub scheduler /scheduler.py. Of course, you can put it anywhere you like. You don't have to put it there. And yeah, wow, this video went super smooth. It wasn't one of these dragging it out hours long, because there were challenges and hurdles to overcome. There were no challenges or hurdles on this one, so it went real smooth. Yeah, yeah, you could use it for your day job. Yeah, this is fundamental. This, in my opinion, Joseph, is more fundamental than web dev. I mean, let me get on my high horse for a moment. And, what I'm showing here is generic automation tech. It's the new stuff sweeping across all Linux distros because Systemctl. Before Systemctl, it was easier to do web dev on Linux than, I don't even know what you would call this, what I'm doing, web dev versus this other stuff. I mean, some of these names are just so terrible. Some might say system administration, sysadmin work. It used to be easier to do web dev than sysadmin work on Linux because of how painful the precursor to Systemctl was. It's called sysv. It's an init system, meaning controlling what happens after a hard reboot. In other words, it's your startup procedure. Learning Systemctl lets you control your startup procedure with the language of your choice. I'm using a Python scheduler. Let cron jobs be a thing of the past. Arcane, like that. Knowledge, not necessary. In other words, you don't need to learn bash script. And you still get the service, enable, disable, start, stop, restart API of any Linux service. It's awesome. This changes thing. It's a game changer. People just don't know it. They don't realize it. They don't see it yet. But this kind of stuff here is as big as web development because it's an automation model. Web development automation, the web dev automation model is much like the genie. Poof, what do you need? Someone makes a request, you have to answer it. Someone makes a request, you have to answer it. And it's one way of working, but another way of working is just having something occur at a particular time every day. You know about bash and cron, but this is great. Yeah, Joseph, I'm glad I can bring this to you. You really like my videos. Thanks for putting this kind of content. 4 to 6 people watching. Yes, that means there's probably like 40 people or something. And then over time with the follow-on views, because, I let it go to my normal channel, these things get driven up in views when I hit the good topics. Some of these things go to 1,000 or 2,000 views, which is big for me. I know for the big YouTubers, if they don't get over 500,000, it's a failure, but I'm pretty happy with what I'm doing. I'm going to build this gradually over time and do projects like this that walk through the things most people need to do most of the time. The work I'm doing is really no different than what most people need to do. Now, can you imagine if you used a system like this, Systemctl, to run things invisibly in the background? For people who are tuning in now, you really must understand that the magic that's going on here is coming from a program called Screen. And I can use Screen to list what screens I have, and there is a screen here because of the way that I define the schedule, the service, the way that I define the service. Because of the way I define the service, I can peek in on the scheduler. This is the screen program. You can tell it's the screen program because I added this stuff down here with the .screen RC, which I talked about in a prior video. And you're like, oh, well, that's like a log file that you're seeing in real time as the writing goes out to it. Yeah, it's exactly like a log file. I'm actually writing the log file in the background too through just with open, but it's writing a file. And you might ask, what about scrolling up? Okay, Control A, escape. It puts you in copy mode. Once you're in copy mode, the J and K keys work just like they do in Vim. And look, I can scroll up probably to all the way to where that original email was sent. And because it's Vim commands, I don't really have to smush the K key. I could have just done Shift forward or Shift back. I guess that's Shift B. Shift forward to go down. Shift B to go back. So you can jump around pretty quick. And here we are at the beginning of it. So you can see how useful that is to see if an automated thing ran. Look, I'm outputting this every 5 seconds. What if you output it for once a day? If your scheduled thing ran once per day, this would be looking at like a month or 2 worth of automated runs that you could just look up and down and go, no, see, it ran. You can give yourself, output here to assure you about even how it ran. Control A, D detaches yourself. And now finally, I'll just show you how I made the service exist on a GNU screen. How? Well, that is found in that service definition. Okay, finally found it. So that's that way because it's not simply this. See, it could be simply that. It could be just the part I highlighted. You get it? I am sending a program called scheduler.py to the Python executable here. That's usually all you need on the command line. This is something that goes on the command line. This exec start equals is saying, you know, run in a command line using this as your current directory, this command. Now this command has this before it, which says use the executable called screen. So it's a screen terminal server. It serves screens. Use the screen terminal server and create a screen called scheduler. And in that screen, do this. Initiate the screen and run this command. And that's what we see. I can show it to you here. Quit out of there. Go larger again. Control L to clear the screen. Screen, reattach. Scheduler. There. So that bit here is why this. One of the most useful tricks in all Linuxdom. And it's relatively new. This .service file thing, this ability to put files in this location, to have them restart, and to have the operating system check for it, and to restart it every 5 seconds with this level of ease and whatever. All you need is to sudo vim, create this file in that location, and then use the systemctl commands to enable it, to start it, and, you know, bam, Bob's your uncle. You do have to understand about making busy loops in Python, though, because if you make something that runs once quick and executes, it's not a good candidate for a service. It's the best use case for the while command for a loop to write services. I know it's from Limitless1. I know it's a difficult question, but how do you avoid burnout in software development field? Okay, Limitless1. How do you? So I am 50. I am almost 52 years old. I am not a software developer. I have no developer related degree. I feel this coding stuff is just basic literacy. I code like I write. I love to write. I love to express myself. I am not on a how do you express the next thing? I don't code specific things as my job. Because it's so hard to explain this concept. What I code is for myself, even when I code for my job. There's a lot about this that internalizes like a martial arts skill. You never stop learning and getting better with a small tool set. If you're forever improving on a small tool set, you don't get frustrated as much as someone who has to keep retraining, keep relearning and retraining, keep relearning just to keep up with the youngins. Youngins. How would Bundy from Married with Children say it? The youngins. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So I am always freshly invigorated because there's always something new to learn, and there's always something new and love-worthy. It's important to say love-worthy because it's not just learning new stuff. There's always something new and love-worthy to learn under Linux, Python, Vim, and Git. Opportunity arises when things like Systemctl land and nobody knows it. I love that process. I love seeing the world change and understanding that I'm amongst the early ones, understanding quite how much the world changed, and I get to look like a superpower to people, to other devs, really. You know, I talk with people who are much heavier hitters than I am at this stuff, and I can hold my own because the small set of tools that I learn really well are good choices, and they are relevant across a broad array of jobs, industries, and eras. The 1970s era, the 1980s era, the 90s era. Every generation, this Linux and Python stuff just becomes more important and more relevant. Not that Python goes back to the 70s, but it does go back 30 years with linear uptake, linear adoption, which, you know, bodes really well for a exciting time ahead of us for people who enjoy these sorts of things. It depends on how you vibe. Certain people like the mastery path, like I do, few tools, learning them well. That's the mastery path. And other people thrive on the churn of having to relearn, but down that path is burnout. For me, for sure. You know, I couldn't touch the full web dev stack. I still can. It makes me cringe. And also from Joseph, you know, code to make jobs simpler. Yes, code to make jobs simpler. We are Mickey's. I would probably demonetize it, but if you haven't done this experience lately, I highly recommend you do it. You know, Google Mickey Saucer's Apprentice, and I won't click down on it, but probably the first one that comes up as a video, you've seen, I've been to it. Go ahead and watch that video. Watch what Mickey is trying to do in animating the broom to carry his buckets of water up the stairs and filling a well or filling a tub over and over. It's hard, back-breaking work. And Mickey is spot on with his thinking. He just didn't have the proper mentorship, you know? Mickey, if properly, you know, trained on, you know, Systemctl and Linux and Python, would have animated that broom properly and done exactly what he set out to do. Yeah, always learning and improve your tool set. Yeah, without it being the willy-nilly running all over the place, dropping thing A for thing B, dropping thing B for thing C, right? So you're always learning, you're always improving, but against as small and timeless of a tool set as you can. I can't emphasize that enough. You can take up other things, but know that a lot of stuff is going to let you down. The things that are not going to let you down, even though they're not perfect, I'm not saying any of these things are perfect, but Linux will not let you down. I used to say Unix/Linux, but Linux has pulled ahead of late. Python won't let you down. You look at the kind of ruckus that was raised in the move from Python 2 to Python 3, they don't like changing APIs. The Python community is, shall we say, dead set against the kind of changing APIs that obsolete you faster than you can run to the next framework, which is what it is in other languages like JavaScript. Vim won't let you down because it's always there. It's part of the Unix standard, a whole bunch of other things. It plays like a video game. You get faster at it over time. And then finally Git, because you ain't got no choice. I mean, there's a few other things like Mercurial, but at the end of the day, you use at least these 4 tools to keep yourself timeless, obsolescence resistant, future-proofed, and to always be able to improve your skills without the reset button being pressed on you all the time. Reset, 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 reset. So always keep learning, but keep learning against a kind of front that isn't redefined, new land boundaries drawn every 2 to 5 years by the profit-incented tech industry, right? There's the profit-incented side with quarterly, revenue goals, and then there's the free and open source world. All right. Yeah, using VI since 1989. That is hardcore, Joseph. Yeah. Keep VS Code on your machine still too. You can't get away from VS Code. But it shouldn't be the only thing you use. See, I don't even know which icon it is. I use VS Code so infrequently, but Vim I'm using pretty much all the time. Post any other questions in here, other people who are, correct the decoration. Yeah, post any other questions you folks have. I'll plan out my next step now. So, this video is very much mission accomplished. Next. Oh, yeah, well, switch schedule to Huey. That's the most important, but probably the most boring for these folks. For the people out there at large, some of the things I'll be doing also, I guess I'll make that a bullet point since install either Puppeteer or Microsoft Playwright. I believe it's Playwright. Yeah, Playwright, fast and reliable end-to-end testing for modern web apps. WRIGHT. And that is for browser automation, for web browser automation, for screenshots, for Google search results, for saving the entire DOM. I'll talk about that later. That's something I certainly plan on doing. And for avoiding needing API access to services. That should probably go under web browser automation as a subpoint of that. For automating processes that can only be done in the browser. Right, you're getting the idea there. So this is very important to me, this whole automating of browsers. And it'll be headless. I'll be able to show the browser. You'll remember I'm doing all these tricks to make sure, yeah, I can use Linux graphics on the host, on the Linux host. Yeah, I can use Linux graphics on the LXD containers. Well, it'll come to be clear to you why I need that graphics pretty soon, because when you do browser automation, you can either run headlessly where you don't show the browser itself, or you can run in graphics mode where you can see the browser. When you're debugging stuff, you certainly want the browser to be showing. And it's oftentimes hard to, do these things on the Windows side and then to automate them headlessly on the Linux side. It'd be better to automate them with graphics on the Linux side, you see, and then just turn off headless mode. No, it's going to run almost exactly the same way. So what else is there to say here? That's planning next steps. So switching to Huey that's going from scheduling, from simple scheduling for humans. It's not so simple, don't sell it short. To data pipelining with low tech liability. In other words, not Apache Airflow. I'm not going the Apache Airflow locally for myself, or even in our department for our own use, because it's kind of overkill. At some point, I'll probably get onto Airflow because we do use it in the company, but I am going to, go with Huey for now, just for some lightweight exposure. So it's about data pipelining, it's about browser automation, and it's probably about some other stuff, but it eludes me right now. It says my stream has only been running for 12 minutes, but you've been listening to since close to the start. Yeah, it's really interesting. This does not report accurately on the people who are here or the details surrounding it. Yeah, you would use this to monitor app and DB servers. I would really like to show something database side. There's some persistence on the server side. It's certainly database persistence on the server side. Database persistence, impervious to container deletion. I could almost demonstrate that right now because of how simple it is. Oh, there's all these people here. I will throw in a bonus. Okay, you folks are here. I'm not going to hang up. If it's reporting 4 concurrent users, it's probably like 8 or something. So I'm going to throw in a bonus here, one of the later things that I've been planning on doing, which is going to be a little bit of database persistence on the server. So I'll stop the service, and it could be fun to stop the service showing you how directly connected these two things really are. So function F11 to bring up the tabs, so I can pull that up and I can use arrow snap to just do that, right? This is beautiful, such a system. I do want a Windows tab, but I want a Windows tab from over here so that I can move this onto that same screen. do the same function F11. I hate that. If Windows has a downside, it's how tied to Windows these strange hotkeys like function F11 are. But as this scheduler goes here, I'll type into this side here something to affect it. So I don't see it scrolling in real time like it should, so I'm going to do Control-AD, and then I'm just going to go back into it, make the font smaller, Control-AD, go back into it. So you can see there's a little bit of artistry because of screen redraw issues. Okay, so over here, Control-L to clear it, sudo Systemctl stop scheduler. I'll just shrink it by a bit. Watch this. I hit enter. Bam. See that? They're really tied together. They're really the same container. Ubuntu at Munchkin. Ubuntu at Munchkin. And now we'll do a little bit of database persistence stuff by just first we're going to need to do a pip install, and so for that we're going to source pi 310 bin activate so that we're in our virtual env. Now we're going to pip install SQLite dict. Okay, so we have one of my favorite third-party packages installed, which just uses SQLite, which already comes with a Python standard library. You got to understand, I'm just providing a different API to something that comes with a Python standard library. SQLite 3 is in the Python standard library, being able to treat a dict as a SQL database is what this library provides. So cd // GitHub service, GitHub scheduler, vim, which are the files in here, vim scheduler.py. The actual output here doesn't need as much room as this. Now some people might be like, oh, just use this terminal to subdivide. I can't stand that. I like arrow snap so much more. So one more import we're going to do is from SQLite dict import SQLite dict as SQL dict. And I believe that is what I need to do. In fact, I'm going to test that over in Jupyter. This is why I talk about Jupyter so much. Control B to bring back our side thing. Create a brand new library. See if I have that installed already. Yay! And now you can go with SQL dict foo.db as database handle, which maybe it should be dbh, but as the database file handle, db some key equals some value, db.commit. Bam, right? You see that foo.db get created there? Now, even if I restart the kernel, watch this. I restart the kernel. So any dictionary value should be wiped away, right? But I'll import this library and I'll use that same with command, but now I'll say for key in db print key, right? So there's some key, and let's print the db handle with a key plugged into it. Some key, some value. So it's persistence. See, this middle one where the value had been set is not there. So this is dictionary persistence. That's the easiest way to use a database. So I got this line right. I'll just put that where it's prettier. And now when I go down and do this stuff, I can put anything I want in that database. I'm gonna, I guess whenever I send an email, if I did this from that file I was calling externally, send cats, I could put the cat picture into a local database. Maybe I'm working towards that, but until I actually get there, I'll make it so that when the send mail program happens, I'll just do a log similarly to the way I'm writing to a file here. So it's simply with SQL dict, and I'll call it cats.db. It's a cats database. So that would put it in the local directory. We also could use that same temp trick that I'm using so that it goes away every time the system loses power. But that TMP, we could do it like that. On any Unix-like system you can do that, but that would defeat the purpose of getting persistence. And we just got to simply write something to the DB. So I guess we'll pick up a timestamp again. We'll put that timestamp in there. We don't need the pulse count. We'll just make it a pure string of a date, and we will the key is going to be, so the key will be a date. Sure, why not? And then what kind of output? See, it's interesting to think what it was. It would make a lot more sense to do it from sendcats and to put the picture in the database. That would be a lot more sexy than figuring out what to put in a database. A timestamp for the key. I'm just going to put foo. The value is going to be foo. It doesn't matter. I don't care. db.commit. And now we are in the scheduler directory here, and I'll do an ls, and you'll see that there's no cats.db, right? This is going to call for the creation of cats.db when this is sent, and it'll just have, date equals foo, or, so it'll have some persistent database stuff. I meant to do that over here. And so since that change has only been made in the .py file, all we have to do to restart that, well, we could go into the screen. Watch this. Screen, reattach, scheduler. Oh yeah, I stopped it. So it's been stopped. So all I have to do is start the service. Sudo systemctl scheduler start. Now sometimes you might want to test it in Python beforehand because I added a few things, but systemctl start scheduler. Oh yeah, I must have changed the .service file maybe. So sudo systemctl daemon reload. And now start the scheduler. And now connect to the screen. No sockets found. I should probably test it through direct Python before I restart the scheduler. So I'm going to stop the scheduler and see if anyone's typing to me, and then I'm going to go fix that problem. Hey, Lewis Heath. Good. Good to see you again. What's up? Yeah, Pi plus MongoDB is very strong. Yeah, MongoDB. There's a lot of key value databases. All this stuff that I'm doing that I tend to back-end with SQLite, you can switch it to be back-ended by any sort of key value system. MongoDB has some interesting advantages because its API varies pretty dramatically from other key value databases in that it builds indexes from the text structure inside the values so that you can query with the performance of an index against what would be unstructured text to most other systems and have terrible performance. So MongoDB is often a great choice for certain types of data. I think it works well for multimedia streaming and stuff. But I tend to use SQLite for my small projects and just keep it local and lightweight. So to run this as normal Python, we can use the full path to the executable. And put scheduler.py in there. Home Ubuntu, not user. Okay. Did I put playwright in that file? 52. Oh, that's weird. I just pasted something at random into there. That's probably why. Yeah, okay, it started. So I just pasted something by random in there. So I had already restarted the daemons, and that file, that change there was not in the .service file. That's in the .py file. So I should just be able to start the service, and now pop in and peek in on the screen. Okay, it's showing that was a screen ls, so we want to attach to it screen reattach to scheduler. And there's our pulses. Sending email, and it's already up to the sending the email. Email sent, and then it'll go on with its pulses. And so what did I do? I did something over here that was made me, writing to the database. It didn't choke on writing to the database. So I should be able to quit out of that and do an ls, and there's our cats.db. It got created. Right? So we've got persistence of database. I think what I'll do, I demonstrated it into a place where I really didn't have anything I needed to store into the database. But I think in a future video, I'll take this database persistence with key value pairs, which is back-ended by SQLite, that's writing out these little SQLite.db files, and move that over into sendcats. And maybe I'll make the key value system for sendcats, of course, the binary large object, which is the cat file itself, the cat.jpg, will be the blob value in SQLite. But the key value, instead of something arbitrary, I'm going to use an image hash. Ever hear of an image hash? Python image hash. Image hash PyPy. Image hashing library. Pip install image hash. And now your key can be a hash of the image. Do you know what a perceptual image hash is? Let's go to this here and I'll kind of show it to you. So the keys in a key value database can be many different things. It can be the thumbnail of an image. So here's an image. There's a process that you can reduce it down to a thumbnail image that roughly represents the original image, and it's a number or it's a hash. These are what hashes are. Hashes are something. And if images are similar, they're going to end up with the same hash. That's why it's a visual hash. This simplification of the image to create a key for a key value database is a wonderful way to dedupe images in an image library, because it wouldn't be able to create a second record to an excessively similar image, right? So I think I'm going to bring together perceptual image hashes with that SQLite database, with that SQLite dict, which could be back-ended by Mongo or Redis or CouchDB or any other, or Postgres, even relational database management systems that are not NoSQL, like SQLite itself is, can back-end key value pair, APIs. So anyway, that was fun. Migrated web app backend from PHP MySQL to Node Express MongoDB. Yeah, that's cool. That's spot on. What's popular these days. So taking out PHP MySQL, I'm really keen on, and replacing it with Node Express MongoDB. I could take it or leave it. It's where all the excitement is. It's where the optimization is. It's where, compiled Node.js code is some of the fastest stuff out there on a web server. So it's highly approved. It's just, it is the hamster wheel. It's the place where it's a lot of retraining. So highly optimized tech, but not the kind of stuff I take on personally, because of the amount of effort of retraining on, particularly Node Express. MongoDB, I think, can pretty easily be rewired to different things in the back end if you wanted to keep updating it in the future, but not if you take advantage of Mongo's very specific features, which are, searching from amongst the JSON object text blobs. That's very Mongo-y stuff to do. Hamster Joe. I think I understand you. Hamster, I would understand it more as hamster job, J-O-B. You wrote Hamster Joe. But you got to be on the hamster wheel for your job. I mean, we all are. We all use technologies that would not be our first choice. So a lot of the stuff I'm showing here is because I'm not hired primarily as a developer, which leaves me a lot of discretion in choosing my tools. Not everyone is so lucky, and I occasionally hamster wheel. So things hang around for a long time, even when fad pushed them into style, like PHP, even though a lot of us are trying to get PHP out of our systems now because of tech liabilities. Facebook was written on PHP, and I don't know if that's changed yet. So some version or variety of PHP will always be preserved. It's not going to go away entirely soon. It's just gone away as a main developer fad, replaced by everything Node.js. Boy, am I running out of things to talk? You folks can ask questions. So you saw me just incorporate a persistent local database. It's an extremely lightweight way of doing it. So people who are like, oh, I haven't done database work because it's too intimidating, I pip installed this. And once that's pip installed, you can use language much like the standard Python context manager, right? This looks like with open, right? It's not with open. It's with SQL dict, which is something I renamed on the import. I made that decision to give myself an easy to remember replacement for open. So instead of with open, it's with SQL dict, arbitrary name. If it doesn't exist, it'll be created as a file handle. That file handle then gets used as the Python dictionary API, right? So it's file handle and then some key equals some value. And then, if you did that again, some key 2, some value 2, run it, step through all your keys, right? There's your first key, there's your second key. Now you're doing database. And that's actually put in the database here so that after a complete restart, you can just import the package and step through your keys and it pulls them out of the database. You see, that's persistence. That's a persistent dictionary. Whoa! The clouds part, the angels play their trumpets. This is another one of these big things coupled with Systemctl and GNU Screen, man. This is really powerful know-how. Powerful, fundamental Linux know-how. Anything more? Simple is good. Yeah, simple is good, because if you're going to have something in your back pocket other than what you have to do for work, but gives you an alternative way to do it, you better love it. It better not change that much over the years. You better be able to get better at it over the years. And, you know, your whole craft and ability improves. I told you folks to, you know, if you want a clear idea of what we're doing, Google Mickey Sorcerer's Apprentice and watch that video. Another Disney-related thing to make sure you understand is the walrus and the carpenter. The walrus and the carpenter. So carpenters are tool people. Walruses are not so much tool people. Their tool is language and communication. The walrus deals with language and communication to get the carpenter to do their bidding. The carpenter goes out and does all the work, and then the walrus enjoys much of the reward of the work. And in Disney's version, the carpenter gets cheated. In the real Lewis Carroll Through the Looking Glass, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland version, the carpenter gets his fair share of oysters. So there is different interpretation of this. But what I recommend is becoming a more and more talented carpenter, a forever more talented carpenter over the years, by diminishing reliance on fad. Diminishing reliance on fad, and to a lesser degree trends, but definitely fads, right? So you're diminishing your reliance on fads, and when you choose a small set of tools, make sure they're love-worthy by you. Make sure they're beloved by the people you work with or hire you, right? That's why Python is such a gift to the world. It's easy enough for people like me, but it still can be accepted by the management type people. It's like, oh, you use Python? Okay, fine. And then, of course, all the other stuff. Make sure they're the P in the pool of tech. Right? And you have to ask yourself, is Node.js the P in the pool of tech? Is it there and never going away? Is Python, for that matter? Right? So these are not fully answered questions. Is Systemctl? Well, I think yes. I think yes. Maybe. Because, you know, fashions change. You know, think about what things do you want to think about? Think about the LAMP platform. When's the last time you heard someone talk about Linux, Apache, MySQL, and P? It's really Perl, PHP, or Python. You know, Oracle bought MySQL, Node and X. In fact, I shouldn't say Node and Nginx, because Nginx took over from Apache. And only Linux and Python survive in the LAMP platform, right? So these three things should be indented under that. Think about what other things replaced it. Think about active server page. Think about PHP deserves to be on its own there, because so many people took up PHP as a reaction to active server page. And on that matter, think about Ruby on Rails. You could even put Adobe Flash in there. Right? That list goes on and on. Technology that you don't think will disappoint you and leave you high and dry. Sorry about the American idioms. Will. They will. I'll take out the idiom. Things that you think won't disappoint you. Don't think will disappoint you. Will. Things will disappoint you. Things that you don't think will disappoint you will disappoint you. So that technology selection has to be made wisely. Let's see who's typing to me. Boy, quite a few things. Yeah, Limitless One says, this is really great advice and a splendid metaphor of Walrus and the Carpenter. Thank you, thank you. I did not invent it. Use Nginx now. MariaDB over MySQL. Generator, Joseph says. I mean, I'm not sure what you mean by generator. There's generators under Ruby, which are extremely different than generators under Python. And then you spell it with a capital G, so maybe it's yet a different generator I'm unaware of. As you said, for a carpenter to become a master and very good at it, his tools need to stay the same and not change like the weather. That's right, Limitless One. That's what's wrong with tech today. Yeah, really eye-opener ideas. Great. I'm so glad. So, yeah, you know, people have different vibes. Some people need to master their tools. Some don't. Right? I do. The tech field is hard for me. It's not so hard for the multilingual types. Some people have this strange ability to take up any language and be proficient with it quick, like they used it all their lives. They speak 3 or 4 languages like it's no big deal. Not me. I find multiple languages difficult. I've tried. And I'm honest with myself. I know my strengths and my weaknesses. If I used different languages, my different languages would be on different fronts. My different languages would be spoken for machines and drawing. Illustration. Drawing is a type of language. So, of course, it's Python here. And it's English here. And then it's, you know, pen and paper here. So when things emulate the pen and paper API, that's why I use, you know, ArtRage. There's so many choices for art, but when I do draw my pictures, I'm using ArtRage. Why? Because the API is really just pen and paper. I don't have to learn stuff. It's like quite natural here for me, and that's super important. And that's a type of language, this kind of drawing. A really eye-opener idea is Flash, Adobe, back 20 years ago. Is that 20 years ago? So yeah, Flash ruled the world, ruled the web world about 20 years ago. And think about all the people who had to retrain from Flash to, I don't even know what, Adobe Premiere and video editing at large, and maybe Blender, right, to get onto some free and open source software. Who knows what the free and open source replacement for Flash is? I don't even know if there is one. Even Blender is only in the free and open source because it was in the proprietary commercial world first and lost to 3D Studio Max and Maya and things like it. So they threw up their arms and said, okay, here's Blender to the free and open source world. That's how the free and open source world gets software of such high quality as Blender. That did not happen in vector graphics yet. Maybe it did, maybe I'm selling it short, but I'm always looking. I'm just about ready to get involved in CAD again. You'll see here is the FreeCAD icon. So I'm convinced enough in the design front to give free and open source software a try again. Of course, GIMP is necessary. Inkscape is a good one. And I don't know if there's anything like ArtRage yet in the free and open source world. Yeah, Blender is awesome. Blender is one of those gifts to the world. Not as big of a gift as Linux, but it's up there. It's definitely up there. So I'm going to start closing tabs, see if there's anything left to talk about. Here on my channel, we represent the walrus. We represent the no, it's not true. Is that a Freudian slip? We represent the carpenter. We represent the carpenter who is stressed out by having to constantly retrain in their craft, right? I'm tired of retraining in my craft in tech, and I've made a study of how not to and still stay relevant. So that's what this channel is really generally about. Some exciting work coming up is to use that key value pair database, the NoSQL approach, to use perceptual image hashes as the keys to the key value databases. So you could list your keys as recognizable pictures. It's, image management stuff. I'm going to tweak this towards image management because so much of the stuff you need to scrape off the web is image oriented. It's how easy it is to get that on Python. Pip install image hash. Ooh, big deal. Now you're going to be able to feed the hash function an image. You just feed it the image and it returns a hash, and then you use that hash in a key value pair, plugging it into a database just like I'm doing here. That's going to be a video coming up. I'm not going to do it in this video though. Me getting tired. Playwright, we're going to do web browser automation. The question is Playwright versus Puppeteer. Puppeteer is the other major way to do browser automation using Python and the Chrome browser directly without very much in between. Well, there is Node.js in between, I got to admit, but not Selenium. It's not Selenium. Look at how Microsoft disses Selenium. Resilient, no flaky tests. That's just a jab. Their auto wait works. Playwright waits for elements to be actionable prior to performing actions. Look how high on their description of their features that is. There's a paragraph here. Any browser, any platform, one API, right? It's a big part of that cell. The very next thing they say after that is, we're not flaky. Psh, psh, psh. All right? So it's really tempting. And there it comes with a Python API that's official from Microsoft. The Puppeteer one doesn't. The Puppeteer offers Puppeteer over GitHub, which is a unofficial wrapping of Puppeteer. Same code base, but Microsoft lifted the code base and made Playwright out of the code base. Microsoft also, by the way, hired the creator of Systemctl. So it's part of an overall movement of Microsoft hiring people who are behind the big shifts in the movements. Microsoft hired the inventor of Python. So anyway, watch Mickey's Saucer's Apprentice. We're doing that right. This is the code from the stuff I've done lately, and you see it on my content management system and how quickly I push out stuff from my videos. Even while the video is being broadcast, I'm promoting that one here. We're moving from a generic scheduler to a more task queue oriented queue manager, pipeline, data pipeline workflow software. Scheduler Deluxe, let's call it. Oh, I had to flush the output of Jupyter in order to show things in good time. And then looking at the documentation for schedule, that brings us back to the beginning of where I started on the video. Yeah, GIMP is great. Yeah. Mike, do use image hash. Okay, I will. I'm really excited about it. I think it's a next logical step on this project. Oh, how did you get a dot? Oh, in the domain for my personal site, for the name of my personal site, mikelev.in, right? How do I have my exact name as my domain, except there's a dot in my name? That's because that's a .india domain. That's .in for India. I'm lucky that my name Levin has the last two letters, which are the same as a top level country domain. Yeah, I got lucky on that. I can't believe there's still 3 concurrent viewers. It's hard for me to hang up when this is another video like yesterday where I got to the mission accomplished within the first 20 minutes of the video, and there's just people hanging on from the chat who I'm not going to disconnect on because it's so rare for me to get 4 concurrent viewers. This is fairly new for me. Anywho, I've got some work I need to do on my site, especially on my blog. I've started to group things by subject matter, so if things belong together as a group, there will be arrows on the bottom so that you can go through a sequence of pages. Yeah, there's a lot that don't have it. So you can go through a sequence of pages, either the sequential way, overall in my blog, or when I get to things that I actually have put in subgroups, which I'm not getting to any right now, but when you get to them, there are arrows at the bottom too, and you can stay within the group. So I need to expose those groups of articles, those related groups, because there's subsequences, essentially subsequences. And I want to make alternative sequences, not just the order I write in the blog, but lists that are extracted from, say, my playlists. If I make greater use of playlists in YouTube, I can use those playlists to make sequences with the articles tied to the video and the embedded video, and you can step through in a logical sequence so you can follow the progression of my videos. I know it's a little bit disjointed now for people to get the whole story. It was at 5 a few years ago. What was at 5 a few years ago? You're visiting my site now. Oh, almost 100 M, meaning 100 minutes of, not 100 minutes, but, well, yeah, that would be right. 60 minutes, 100 minutes. Yeah, it's going on for a while. 5 minutes ago. Oh, by the way, on my viewers, any viewers that join in as a result of this premiere are going to be pushing me over 11,000 viewers. There, 11,000. Look at that, just during the course of this video. I have never been up to 11,000 viewers before. I'm not going to get overly excited because this often dips down by a few views, after the shine of the video wears off or whatever. But, I'm in the 11,000 club. It took me so long to get to 10,000. Now I finally reached 11,000. So I'm pretty pumped. Things are going in the right direction. It's gradual, slow, linear growth. And again, this is just rambling. So you guys pose your questions, or else I'm going to be winding down. That we close, that we close, that we close, that we close, and that brings us back to here. So yeah, awesome. Thank you, Joseph. Thank you for joining in. It's always wonderful to hear from you. And thanks to Limitless One. Spread the word. I can feel your seeing the religion here. There's a new religion, and it's not a dogma, right? It's not refusing to believe things out of, I don't like the world changing. It's acceptance of the constant change of the world. The world will always be in flux. Moore's law will always continue. Hardware will always improve, and therefore platforms and APIs that are specialized for those platforms will always be changing. But under all that, there will always be a set of technologies which, while I love the Linux, Python, Vim, and Git variety, there are clearly other technologies that are P in the pool of tech that are never going away, namely Bash script, C, and varieties. And, I would probably put Lisp in that category, a language that will never die, but it has to be Lisp and dialects. And then things which are, very faddish that people thought would never go away, not like these. Include, of course, the totality of the LAMP platform. It seemed like it was going to be that way, and varieties of it still exist. The active server page platform, PHP platform, Ruby on Rails platform, and the full web stack, ? Node, ? We don't know. We got to put JavaScript up here as things that won't go away. JavaScript is like the P in the pool of tech now too, but via Node in particular, maybe not. Server technologies can change much more fluidly than language support in the browsers. For whatever reason, the browser vendors have locked on to JavaScript and said, despite our ability to read, ASM or whatever, the interoperable compiled, internal language of the browser, the plain text, uncompiled, only language they're ever going to support, it seems, is JavaScript. Very odd. And so this thing called the full web stack exists, because if you got to use JavaScript on the browser, might as well use it on the server too. It gives you that same non-blocking I/O, which can be very useful for serving lots of responses. And yes, it hits a sweet spot. So the question is whether it is really still just a fad, or P in the pool of tech. We don't know. Hard to say. You're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah, that's the idea. This is how to become good at something. Much appreciated for the stream. Read, watch, code, repeat. Yeah, stayed away from JavaScript so long until Node. Yeah, me too. In fact, I tried taking up JavaScript in the days of Helma, the Helma and Rhino combo. So Helma and Rhino was like Node before Node. It wasn't the first attempt. In fact, JavaScript has been on, JavaScript on the server has been, since Netscape server stuff. Netscape Enterprise Server was JavaScript on the server. Active Server page supported JavaScript on the server. Node is just the latest coming of it based on extracted Google browser technologies because it was so well optimized. I must be giving everyone a headache just going back and forth between these things. Yeah, back to 5 watchers. Oh my God, 5 concurrent viewers. Just when I think I'm going to disconnect, I don't, because people are tuning in. So yeah, I'll stay here, and I'm going to open it to questions. In fact, I'm going to just go into this drawing program and get ready to draw something. Let me turn the lights on. I know it's getting dark. Shall I talk about hardware love? People fall in love with hardware. People fall in love with hardware. So, there's game consoles. And then there's, smartphones. And there's, of course, our laptops. There's the cloud with all its different APIs. And there's Raspberry Pis. And then there's, so many other types of hardware that people fall in love with. People really fall in love with their hardware. But what I'm saying is to find a common denominator, a lowest common denominator that's between all these different things. Somewhere down in there, you're almost guaranteed that there's nicks. Even if it's not the primary thing, even if it's Windows with a NIX subsystem, everything has NICs. It's just the way it is these days. Sometimes the consoles have NICs. This is hacking territory. Raspberry Pi is almost by definition NICs. So you learn NICs, right? Now all these NICs platforms are collectively the same kind of virtual platform thing. A Unix-like terminal. That you will almost always recognize because your login looks like that. A tilde and a $sign. And that is what is in common between all these different systems. So if you learn Nix, you're learning all these systems. You're learning rudimentary control over all these systems. Now, the control over the different subsystems on here may vary and be clamped down on by the manufacturers of the hardware. They have an awful lot of control over what you can do with Nix, through the Unix APIs accessing the rest of the hardware. And it varies. And one of the big tricks is when they rely on a GPU for machine learning. GPU question mark. So when you do things that call for a GPU being there for machine learning, and that's where stuff is really maturing these days, right? Because that's becoming true more and more often. It's true here, right? So when you're using the Windows subsystem for Linux and you need access to the GPUs for all those wonderful machine learning languages, you've got it. You've got it, and you can tap the resources of your own local machine really well. The same is generally true for the cloud, but they make you pay for it. You get access to those GPU type things, but you pay to rent them out. There's little AI chips on phones, but they're not really used in that way too much. And there's plenty of people thinking about how to use like the multi-core Raspberry Pis to do GPU type things for Bitcoin mining. Drives a lot of this, you know. I'll have to be honest. A lot of this is about driving Bitcoin mining, but a lot of it is all about just creative things people are doing with machine learning systems now. And other systems, but you know, we're talking always about sexy stuff here on the YouTube. So this kind of ability moving to these Nix boxes is really good because you have greater access to machine learning. I drew that one wrong. That should be on that sort of thing in particular, because that's where all the action's at. Okay, do we still have 3 concurrent viewers? Desktop at you love you love hardware. Yeah, it's hard to break the love for the hardware. It's not that the love for the hardware really has to be broken. It's that when you are the kind of person who has the love for the hardware, you have to be careful about your heart getting broken, right? It's easy for you to get your heart broken because of the churn that occurs here. There's tremendous churn on the hardware, and your favorite hardware goes out of style, just like favorite, platforms, favorite frameworks. Ruby on Rails goes out of style. So you can imagine, Ruby on Rails going out of style as Mac laptops go out of style. I know Apple's making a really hard try, but come on, they don't even have touch screens yet, and at a lower cost than Macs, you get touchscreen with this kind of stylus I'm showing. You couldn't be doing this on a Mac. You couldn't be doing what I'm doing right now on a Mac, not without, ways to compensate for not being able to draw on the screen. But I'm using a stylus. My stylus could let me do a double click to do a screen snapshot, right? My stylus can let me just erase portions. Look at that, right? I just lift the eraser up, turn it around, and I can use an eraser. And I never have to recharge it. There's a battery that eventually goes bad in years, but you don't have that weird thing to lose off the back of the stylus like Apple Pencils. The list goes on. The combination of Microsoft's touchscreens on their cheap laptops and their highly good styluses. And I know Asus and Acer and Dell and HP, they all have pretty cool offerings in laptops these days. But Microsoft definitely sort of set the standard by putting out things like their Surface laptops like this, giving you so much for so little. 22U home lab rack. Yeah. So Joseph, I can tell there was a time when it was like co-location centers and rack mounted computers when, rack space was measured by rack units. So what Joseph is talking about is he had a 22 rack unit capable chassis or closet, in his home, so that, his home servers were literally the same kind of slided into a rack home server that would have been in co-location centers. And there's lots of great opportunity to tweak out the hardware and to get the maximum performance for the dollar and to not pay a cent for cloud hosting services. Yeah, you've been looking at getting a drawing pad. Yeah. Well, the thing about drawing pads, and I've played with them, is they're an external peripheral device. I mean, I guess in a way styluses are, but now you have this disconnect between a pad where you're drawing, unless it has a screen on it, and where your drawing is really occurring. It's the same problem I have with mice and trackpads and stuff. It's such a disconnect. Steve Jobs made us accept, drawing on the screen with a bar of soap. And the old Wacom tablets aren't much better because the tablet's down here and the screen's up there. So I really love these touch screens that let you use styluses right on it. It's extremely natural. I don't understand your base, Joseph. So yeah, you're using I guess I'm looking at your prompt. Yeah, okay, you're telling me about your, how your prompt looks. Yeah. So you're in a virtual environment, a Python virtual environment. You use your real name as your username, and your host name is desktop-u60HCAL:$. So there's a lot that can be inferred there. So anyone have any questions you want to put up here? I'm rapidly winding down. I did my drawing. I use Screen to do this. Some people use Tmux. I use Screen because it's good enough and part of the GNU set of tools. So GNU is where Linux gets its Unix-like commands. I tend to choose things that come from those GNU, from the GNU set of tools before I choose alternatives. So for me, it's Screen over Tmux. I tend to use Microsoft Windows Unified Terminal, but I don't use its screen dividing capabilities. There's ways you can divide these screens up. I might use multiple tabs, but that's about the most I'll ever use. But I really like ArrowSnap. I really like Microsoft's ArrowSnap. I wish all desktop implementations did that quite that smoothly. Yeah, okay, then that's wrapping up for sure. Joseph ran out of comments. Okay, thanks for joining me, everyone. Talk to you soon, and can't wait to get to the next video. Stay tuned for my live cast announcements or just premieres of pre-recorded videos. I'm still sort of feeling it out which way, and it depends on the time of day and all the rest of that. Take care. Talk to y'all soon.